Good morning. Today we'll be seeing about topic lesser sac. Other name for it is omental bursa. What is this lesser sac? It's nothing but a recess of the peritoneum which is present behind the lesser omentum and the stomach. So this we'll be seeing under following headings. What are the boundaries for that, like anterior wall, posterior wall, superior border, inferior border, right and left border. Then we'll be seeing the what are the parts of it. So this you can again number like it's having one opening through which it's communicating with the greater sac. So this will be epiploic foramen. Then it's having two walls, anterior wall and posterior wall, three recesses, then we have four margins. So what are these? We'll be seeing today. So lesser sac, it's nothing but it's at the recess of the peritoneum, which is behind the stomach omentum, that is the lesser omentum. So for this we'll be seeing under different diagrams. If this is the liver, let's draw it black itself. This is the liver, below that stomach. If this is the posterior abdominal wall, this is your diaphragm. We have this pancreas, which is a retroperitoneal organ. This will be transverse colon. So lining this, we'll be having your omentum between the greater lesser curvature and the liver, and greater curvature and the posterior abdominal wall. So this is the liver, and this is in continuation with the peritoneum covering the diaphragm. Then other layer, I'll be using this color. This is the other layer which I am drawing with the green thing. So this forms a transverse mesocolon lining the colon, and this thing is your peritoneum. So we can decrease this, actually it will be half of this. This is a rough diagram of what you will be seeing. Pancreas, transverse colon. So lining that, we have this peritoneum, which is in red. Another one is this, which is in green. This will be our peritoneum. So this in red is the lesser sac, which is lined by the red line, and this is our greater sac. So in between the liver and the stomach we are having, this is lesser omentum. Between the stomach and the posterior abdominal wall, this is greater omentum. So this greater omentum is having 1, 2, 3 and 4 layers. This is colon with its mesentery, that we are calling it as transverse mesocolon. This is transverse colon. So this is stomach with the omentums. So in this diagram we can see this is superior, inferior, anterior and the posterior. So in this, according to this diagram, we can say this lesser sac is having anterior wall, posterior wall, superior border and inferior. So what are the structures forming the anterior wall? You can start from here. It will be caudate lobe of the liver, that is covered by the peritoneum. Then this is the lesser omentum, posterior layer of the lesser omentum. Then the peritoneum, which is covering the postero-inferior surface of the stomach. Then second layer of the greater omentum, which is continuing to become the third layer of the greater omentum. Then the peritoneum, which is lining the anterior surface of the transverse colon and anterior layer of transverse mesocolon. Then it continues and covers the pancreas, which is a retroperitoneal organ, then goes upwards and again going to the diaphragm. Now what are the structures forming the anterior wall for this part of the lesser omentum? This thing, stomach covered by the peritoneum. Which surface of the stomach? Postero-inferior surface of the stomach. Then second layer of the greater omentum. So these are the structures forming the anterior wall for the lesser sac. Then the posterior wall will start from below upwards. Which ones in specific? Third layer of the greater omentum, then peritoneum covering the transverse colon, which will be forming the anterior layer of the transverse mesocolon. These things. Then we'll have your structures, some structures which are forming the stomach bed, which are in relation with the posterior wall of the lesser sac. What are they? Apart from the pancreas, one thing is pancreas, then we have left kidney, along with the kidney left suprarenal gland. Apart from that we have splenic artery. Then if you trace upwards, then we have the diaphragm. So these are forming the posterior wall. Then about the superior wall, superior border, at this point, if you see this here, this peritoneum will be lining the diaphragm, then it goes back to the liver. So this reflecting point, at this point we have the peritoneum reflecting over to the caudate lobe of the liver, and apart from that, superior border along with that reflection of the peritoneum from the diaphragm onto the liver, we have one more thing, that is gastrophrenic ligament, that is between the stomach and the diaphragm. Then other diagram is, if you take a transverse section and look for that, then you will be seeing a different thing. Suppose this is your liver, which is on the right side. Then this is your stomach. On the left side we have a spleen, and this is your vertebrae, kidneys. Then here we have closer to the inferior vena cava and our aorta. In this region, behind the liver, we had a structure called porta hepatis. Using this diagram, we will be drawing that. So mark 2 points here. Start from this liver here. This is anterior abdominal wall. This will be the posterior abdominal wall, lining the spleen, and from spleen to the stomach. This thing. Trace this backwards. Around this we have our entire abdominal wall, anti-abdominal wall, posterior abdominal wall. Then we have this thing which I am drawing in green. This will be a two ligaments, gastrophrenic and leanorenal. This point, this will be narrow. This point where I am having the arrow, this is where we have the epiploic foramen which communicates with the greater sac and lesser sac. This thing which is lined by green or light color, this will be a lesser sac, which is lined by red is the greater sac. And this thing will be over epiploic foramen through which this lesser sac is communicating with the greater sac. So this is liver, this is stomach, this is spleen, kidney, right and left kidney we have. This is inferior vena cava. Then here, so what will be this? This will be the free margin of the lesser curvature, free margin of the lesser omentum. In this we have the porta hepatis. This ligament between the stomach and the spleen is gastrosplenic ligament, and this ligament between the kidney, left kidney and the spleen is splenorenal ligament. So here this is porta hepatis related with the free margin of the lesser omentum. This is the stomach. Between the stomach and the spleen we have one ligament, that is gastrosplenic ligament. Between the spleen and the left kidney we have the leanorenal ligament. This is the right side and this is the left, anterior and the posterior one. So this is where you can see the greater sac, lesser sac, and communication between the greater sac and lesser sac is this epiploic foramen. Then one more thing we need to know is what are the structures forming its right border and the left border. We have seen the superior border, and here itself we can see the inferior border. How is that inferior border related with? The inferior border is between the anterior layer and the posterior layer of your greater omentum. So this space will be obliterated because this both get approximated. Second and third layer, or you can say anterior and posterior layers of the greater omentum, they get closer to each other and this space will be obliterated. So this will be the inferior border between the two layers of the anterior and posterior layer of the greater omentum. This is the superior border. It's related with the reflection of the peritoneum from the diaphragm onto the caudate lobe of the liver, and apart from that you have one more thing, that is the gastrophrenic ligament. So that is about anterior wall, posterior wall, superior border and inferior border. One more thing is we need to know its other margins. What are the other margins? Right and left margins of it. So if you cut open the greater omentum and look into that, it will be something like a hot water bag. Lesser sac will be something like this. So this is our epiploic foramen. Through which the lesser sac and greater sac will be communicating. So this will be a superior border which is related with the reflection of the peritoneum from the diaphragm onto the caudate lobe, and this side will be having the gastrophrenic ligament. Then we have two margins, right and the left side. So what are the structures related with this left margin is, what are these two? These are ligaments between the spleen and the stomach and spleen and the left kidney. So these will be forming your left margin. What are they? Gastrosplenic and splenorenal ligaments. These two form the left border of the lesser sac. Then what about the right border of this? So peritoneum will be reflected from the pancreas, that is reflection of peritoneum from pancreas onto the first part of the duodenum. It's starting from there, from below upwards. So this is one forming there. Then apart from that, above it, it's having a free opening, that we are calling it as the epiploic foramen. Then above that, it's related with the peritoneum reflecting the caudate lobe of the liver. So what is important here is this reflection of the peritoneum from the pancreas onto the first part of the duodenum, that is forming the right border. Then above that we have epiploic foramen. So epiploic foramen is related with the right border of the lesser sac, and left border we have this gastrosplenic and splenorenal ligament. So this is about the borders, right border, left border, and this is about how this greater sac and lesser sac are related and what are the related ligaments. So here we need to know one more important thing, that is epiploic foramen. So before that we'll revise this. So what are the structures forming the anterior wall and the posterior wall? Anterior wall, we have this peritoneum. In this also we can say anterior and the posterior. If this is a lesser sac, anterior wall will be from the lesser omentum, posterior inferior surface of the stomach. Then we have this greater omentum. Anterior wall is formed by the anterior layer of the greater omentum. Then posterior wall we have this third and fourth layer, or you can specifically say third layer of the greater omentum, then it's getting reflected onto the anterior surface of the transverse colon, then it's forming anterior layer of transverse mesocolon. Then you can add up these things. What are they? Left kidney, above that we have left suprarenal gland. Then starting from this aorta, we have an artery called splenic artery going to this. Then if you go down, we can see the pancreas and all. How to remember them? They except the spleen, other structures which are forming the stomach bed, they are forming the posterior wall of your lesser sac. So what is lesser sac? Lesser sac posterior wall is nothing but stomach bed structures minus your spleen. So except spleen, other structures which are forming the stomach bed, they are forming the posterior wall of the lesser sac. Now we'll be saying, so what is the peculiarity of this? Sometimes any contents from this greater sac, they may try to enter into this lesser sac via this epiploic foramen. This we are calling it as internal herniations. Maybe some loops of the intestine may go and enter into that. Sometimes if there is any ulcer of the posterior inferior wall of the stomach, any ulcer, and it may get perforated, that infection may enter into this lesser sac, and that forms a cyst called pseudocyst of pancreas. That is any infection, any inflammation occurring in the lesser sac, and apart from that, this lesser sac will be communicating with one of the important rhesus of your greater sac. What is that? That is a hepatorenal pouch. Then next thing is the important thing is the epiploic foramen. What is this epiploic foramen? It is nothing but a communication between, it's an opening in the right margin of the lesser sac. So before that, we'll finish off the parts of this lesser sac in this diagram. So apart from this, we have two folds here. This is left gastropancreatic fold, which is formed because underlying we have a left gastric artery, and this will be right gastropancreatic fold. Underlying that we have hepatic artery, which is covered by peritoneum. Because of that we have a fold here. So in this we can see the parts of the lesser sac. This part is epiploic foramen. The part just immediately left to that is vestibule. Then this part is the body. This body is lying behind the lesser omentum, and it's related behind the lesser omentum and the stomach. This is inferior recess, which will be almost obliterated. Then this above this fold, this part above the epiploic foramen, this is superior recess. The superior recess is related behind the caudate lobe of the liver. So those are your parts of the lesser sac. What are they? This is the epiploic foramen, through which it's communicating with the greater sac. The part just immediately left to that epiploic foramen is vestibule. Then we have body, which lies behind the lesser omentum and the stomach. behind the caudate lobe, this part is superior recess and this part is the inferior recess. And towards the left between the gastrosplenic and splenorenal, we have splenic recess. So what are the three recesses we can see? This thing, superior recess, splenic recess and inferior recess. Inferior recess will be obliterated because that anterior and the posterior wall of the greater omentum, they fuse with each other and that form. Superior recess is related with your behind the caudate lobe, and the splenic recess is between the gastrosplenic and splenorenal ligament. Then coming to the one more important thing, that is the epiploic foramen. So what for that, we will be seeing a sagittal section